Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Osterholt, and I'm on staff here at the Ohio Pork Council in Columbus. And we're so excited that you all could join us for a virtual field trip. So we've got a couple different classes. You guys have been great sports. I know we've tried to have this event twice and school was canceled. So we've got Mapleton and Garaway, Mr. Bodie's class and Ms. Snyder's class. And we have Dan Toland offering technical support. So we want to make sure that was a good wave from Garaway. We want to make sure and say thank you to Dan. And the final announcement before we get to our featured guest is we need to thank our sponsors for making this possible. We've got a lot of jobs that are available on Ohio pig farms across the state. So we want to talk a little bit about that. And we want to thank Farm Credit Mid-America, the Ohio Soybean Council, and Cargill for making these events possible. Without further ado, let's get our hands ready. Let's give a round of applause. Do we think he's going to be good? Come on, Mapleton. Let's get your hands up. Get them going. Well, let's welcome our farmer, Tom Graham.
I guess it's afternoon now. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I'm Tom Graham. I'm in the northwest corner of Muskingum County on a bright, sunny day outside. My barn, I'm sure you didn't come to see me, so let me flip this thing around and show you pigs. There it is. Did it go? Didn't go. There's pigs.
So tell us, Tom, what have you been doing?
Pigs you're looking at have been in my barn 2 weeks today. They've, in that 2 weeks, they've probably doubled in size by weight. They came in at about 12 pounds. I've probably got some today that are probably 30 pounds. I'll show you those. Those have been here 2 weeks. On the other side of the aisle, I've got pigs that have been here. They came in last Friday. So a little bit of comparison. So a little bit about me. I mentioned I'm in the northwest corner of Muskingum County. I've been raising hogs for about 35 years. I enjoy it very much. The way I start out my day is a little different than most farmers do. When I get to my barn in the morning, I take a shower in the barn. And I do that to protect the health of the pigs. I primarily raise female pigs. We call them gilts. After they're raised up to about market size, a good percentage of them go back to other farms to become sows or mother pigs. So what would you like to know about them? I'm open for questions.
Well, I'm curious. Let's go to the classes first, Tom. How many of you have ever seen a pig barn like this or been in one? That's my first question. Can you raise your hand if you have? Good, we have several. Thank you for the excitement in the back row. Oh, they're leaving. So the next thing, Tom, why don't you talk a little bit about, your farm is different than a lot of us might think about farms in terms of who owns the pigs, who has what responsibilities. So you're a contract grower. Why don't you tell us what that means and for you and your family?
That is correct. I am a contract grower for Heimerl Farms. That's the family that owns the pigs. Our farm consists of my brother and my parents. We farm about 1,000 acres. We have this hog barn that finishes out 2,400 head at a time. And we also have about 60 cows, and we raise their calves to market as well. What a contract grower does is, the way it's set up for us is the farmer, me, builds the barn, and we furnish the building, the labor, and the utilities. The contractor who owns the pigs pays us for the work that we do. It's primarily on a per pig space. So We get a check every month from the contractor, but that family owns the animals. They furnish the feed and they furnish the veterinarian. And I have contact with my veterinarian almost on a weekly basis.
Since you're raising mother pigs, you're concerned that they stay very healthy. So that's why you're in contact so often, right?
That is correct.
And we were planning to have her join us on this video chat 2 weeks ago, and it was originally scheduled before all of the snow delays. So Tom, we have a request. The phone's a little bit shaky. Do you mind like maybe propping up against a gate or some? There you go. It even got better there, I think.
Oh, yeah, it helps when I can see it. That little screen down in the corner. But let me tell you a little bit about what's going on at this age. If you'll notice, I have a rubber mat here in the corner of each pen with a gas. We call them a brooder. That's a gas heater hanging right there, and it reflects heat down onto that rubber mat. There's also a furnace you see there, a shiny box hanging back there is a furnace. We maintain this room at 75 degrees for pigs this age. And the brooder just adds supplemental heat to that mat. So if the pigs want to be warmer, they can go lay on that mat. The mat actually serves two purposes. If you can see that there's some feed on it. For about the first 3 to 4 weeks the pigs are in this barn, I put extra feed on the mats. We do have feeders. I'll move over to one of them. So you can see the pigs are eating out of the feeders, and they're full of feed all the time. Let me go ahead and get in this pen. Since these pigs have been on 3 different rations since I've been in the barn. If you can see, some pellets are still caught on top of the feeder, but the last couple of days I switched them over to a ground feed. So we come in and we look every time we go through the barn, which is at this age, I'm in here about 6 to 8 hours a day. I'll put feed on the mats about 6 times a day, just so that they've always got feed offered to them. But this is where they get their water. There's 2 of these cup waterers in every pen. And the way they get their water is, since pigs like to play, they can push on this little valve on the bottom and fill that cup with water. Some of them are more aggressive than others. So if they're not really aggressive, there's usually some water in there that they've left in, so the ones that are not so aggressive can have water too. But it works really well. A lot of times when I get new pigs in, I'll set those to drip a little bit so that they learn how to work them. But within a couple of days, they're working it themselves.
How long did it take you? I know you had to completely power wash the barn in between groups of pigs. How long does it take to clean the barn?
It takes me about 40 man hours to clean this barn. And we wash everything. We wash the ceiling, the walls, the floors, and then we disinfect after it's washed. So we're pretty thorough in how we clean. This barn's 13 years old, and it's got some dust. After pigs are in here about 4 or 5 days, the stirring up feed and running around, they stir up the dust. So it doesn't stay clean very long, but we do what we can do. See, there's a coating of dust on everything.
What questions do the students have? Tom, can you get us down to the floor level? Can we see the pigs a little bit closer? And then I think we had a question possibly. Anything from Garaway? Any questions? Anybody else have any questions?
Yes. Yeah. They were asking about the schooling that the farmer had to go through.
I'm sorry, I didn't. The what?
Like the schooling or training that the
Got
farm-
it. Okay, thank you. Tom, what schooling and training did you have to go through before you got the barn? And then what kind of things do you have to do on a regular basis?
Well, I've been a farmer all my life. I don't have a degree in agriculture. I do have actually a degree in construction. I did go to a 2-year school after high school. I guess, I mean, if any of the kids are in 4-H and familiar with the quality assurance program, we as farmers, as pork producers, go through that training, and we have grower meetings once or twice a year with the family that owns the pigs, and they keep us up to date on what new trends and what we need to be doing. I've got a service person that actually comes in my barn once a week, and she mainly acts as just an extra set of eyes to see things that maybe I get familiar with looking at. But as far as education, I guess maybe just the school of hard knocks in my case. Like I've been raising hogs here for 32 years. This barn this way for the last, I'm in my 14th year doing it this way. But before that, we had 150 sow fair to finish operation.
So
Does that help a little bit?
yeah. So there's quality assurance, there's port quality assurance plus, there's transport quality assurance, there's specific training for handling mortalities to help protect the environment. There's all sorts of environmental programs. And for your crop farming, there would be other licenses for
chemical certifications and all kinds of things. Farmers don't get out of being educated.
So it's not just the school of hard knocks.
No, you jogged my memory.
That was a good question. What other questions are there?
Do you have a certain percentage of like protein or anything that you have to maintain with your barns or anything, or do you just kind of feed whatever you can get?
Now, as I mentioned, the family that owns the animals furnishes the feed, and it's all based on the latest. I mean, it's all based on science and the nutrition that animal nutritionists develop. Like I mentioned, I've just started these pigs on their third stage since they've been in the barn. They started out with a pellet, and I top dress that pellet with it's a really aromatic, sweet smelling, kind of like, it's got a lot of milk product in it. I top dress with that, and that gets them really interested in nosing around. But these pellets are really sweet smelling. They like them, and even the ground feed that they're starting on now has some crumbles in it that you can kind of see them laying there if I hold it real still. Some crumbles in it that help transition them over from a pelleted feed to a ground feed. This ration here, being the third one in the barn, will still have a little bit of milk or milk-based, whey-based protein in them. It takes pigs about 3 to 4 weeks after they've been weaned for their stomach to change over from a animal protein base to a plant protein base. So as they grow, they'll take the animal protein out, which would be whey and different things like that, and move them over onto a more soy protein base. Should help that answer that question a little bit.
You had a great question, and that's one of the benefits. You know, a lot of you that raise animals know the biggest expense in raising an animal is the feed. So Tom has a specialized barn, so he gets pigs once they're weaned and helps get them started eating solid feed. So they've come off their mother, they're too big, there's too many pigs, their mom can't make enough milk, the sow can't. So they come into this barn, Tom's getting them transitioned to solid feed, getting them a good start growing until market weight, or in his case, until they go on to another farm to be mothers. But there's so there's parts of this that are very labor intensive. Like right now, Tom said he's in the barn all day, right? But once they get established and get going, it's not quite as difficult. So mother pigs, the mother farms, there's a lot more specialized equipment helping get the mothers bred, helping them give birth, helping get the pigs dry and get started nursing. So a lot of times there's bigger farms that would have those that would own the sow barns, and then they would work with lots of families like Tom's. So like this farm works with Tom's family to take care of a barn or two of pigs as they're growing. So Tom might hire people, but some of the bigger farms hire a lot of people, whether it's to make the feed, to drive trucks, to deliver the feed, to be the service people that Tom talked about. So he's got a young lady that's in her early 20s, maybe mid 20s, that takes care, goes between his barn and probably 20 other barns, Tom, or I guess I honestly don't know, but several barns.
Well, I've heard her say she'll take as many as 13 showers a day.
That's a lot. That's a lot. There's jobs, in human resources, in accounting, in tracking paperwork. So there's all this pig tracking database. Well, somebody has to enter that information. So there's a lot of different jobs. There's quality checking, quality control of the feed. Lots of opportunities at some of these farms around the state. So we certainly want you to consider pork as a job opportunity. But part of the benefit, I guess, for Tom is he doesn't have to, it's a steady income. Do you want to speak a little bit more to that, Tom? Like why you'd be a contract grower instead of just raising for yourself?
The biggest reason we've gone to this, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, and that question touches a lot of different aspects of that. We did raise pigs on our own, and when a farmer is raising pigs on their own, they're heavily dependent on what the market does. Now, that's not to say that the family that we raise them for is also dependent on what the market does, but for us as a contract grower, it is a steady income. It's a monthly check that we can get, and it's been very beneficial to our farm. The reason that we're raising pigs this way now is part of that reason. A lot of farmers didn't want to take that hit on having to be involved in the market and the risk that's associated with that. Sometimes when the market goes low, farmer has to borrow money just to buy feed to feed the pigs. So that's the reason that one of the big reasons that pig farming has gone to this method. But like I say, it does provide a steady income for us. This barn was about a $500,000 investment 14 years ago when we put it up. It is now completely paid for. So that money that we use, or that money that the barn makes us now, goes into helping us keep other parts of the farm going.
All right. What other questions?
It's interesting. It's a fun job. I enjoy doing this very much. I've always enjoyed working with animals, but it's not without its challenges. We have to, especially this winter, when one morning last week, I received pigs on Wednesday mornings and Friday mornings. 2 mornings we unloaded pigs. It was 8 below zero when we unloaded them, and these pigs actually come up from Brown County down along the Ohio River, so it was a 3-hour ride for those. But when they pull in, the steam's rolling out of that trailer from the heat that they're putting off. But there's just like a 5-minute walk. Our chute, the loading chute where they come down off the trailer, is completely covered, and they come right off that trailer into a 75-degree room. So that's some of the costs that we incur. We're going to have a big gas bill this winter, keeping the pigs warm. So other costs I have a couple people, part-time people that help me out on the farm. But all in all, it's been a good deal for our farm and keep
I
us going.
appreciate you sharing, Tom. Let's go back to the classrooms and see what other questions they have. Speak up very loudly, please.
So, what kind of hogs do you have, and why did you pick that Pacific breed?
So these pigs, I can't tell you the breed they are. They're actually a hybrid. You're looking at a pen of females. Get my fingers out of it. When I get pigs at this stage, they bring me both males and females. The males are called barrows, and the females are gilts. And well, they come off the trailer separately, but I keep the barrows separate from the gilts. I think the pen next to me, if you'll notice them, some of these pigs have ear tags. There's some orange tags and there's some white tags. There's also some pigs I believe in there that don't have any tags. But those tags designate what genetic line they are. Like I mentioned, this farm produces, the farm that I get the little pigs from produces 3 different breed lines. And that's just mainly to satisfy a customer's needs, especially for the females. See how the best way to say that is, so if a farmer wants a certain breed to develop for replacement stock for their own herd, meaning to keep gilts back, they'll want a certain genetic line, where other farmers would just grow the pigs to go on for market to be meat producers. They would want a different genetic line. So good question, and I'm glad to be able to show you. I mean, you can't tell the difference in them looking at them, unless as they grow, you can start seeing some distinctive things, like some of the orange tags. If you notice, their ears hang down a little bit more, where I noticed the white tag ones, their ears are upright. So if you know anything about pig breeds, you can start identifying a little bit of what the genetic makeup was to make, to develop these animals. A good question.
But that leads to a great point. There's tons of jobs within the genetic companies. There's selection officers. There's people that are testing the different breeds to determine, managing all that data, looking at who's got the most pigs, who grows the quickest, what's the best rate of gain, and lots of jobs in between. What other questions? Let's head back to Mapleton. You guys have had some good ones. And Garraway, if you've got another one, get it ready and we'll speak very loudly next time.
Since you do have such a large population of hogs in per pen and per barn, do you have any risk factors that would come into injury with that amount of animals there?
Interesting question. I stock these pens to about 70 head when they come in. That's about the maximum I can put in for them to be able to, number one, have space to lay under that heater and feeder space. When I did build the barn, I put double waterers in. So they've got waterers on both sides of the pen for that capacity. And these pigs, the males will only be here for about 6 weeks total, and then they'll go on to another barn. At that point in time, I'll break these other pens down to about 35 head per pen, and that's where they'll stay at until they're marketed, based on the pen size and the animal space they require to grow. But other than that, the other risk is what I mentioned, that that I shower into this barn every time I come and go is to reduce a lot of outside risk, disease pressure, and that kind of things from getting in the barn. So that being said, nothing from the outside of this barn comes in the barn without going through the shower.
But just to reiterate, these pigs, it looks like they're crowded right now, which they're not as much as it looks because they come up to the camera, leaving empty spaces in the pen. But as they grow, you send pigs to other barns, right? So you're sort of acting as a nursery right now.
That's correct. We call this barn wean to finish, and that is because we have the extra heat in this barn, the brooders that hang. We've got the mats, and I've been doing this way for about 13 years. It's called double fill. There's some times where I have I've just operated this barn as a nursery. The pigs came in and they were here for 4 to 5 weeks, and they went on to other farms into what they call grower barns, where they don't have the extra heat, because they only need this heat for about the first month they're in this barn. Once they get to 50, 60 pounds, they're pretty well capable of handling the winter. But I mean, not being said, but within kind of rambling, I guess. Once these pigs are 50 to 60 pounds, we've got the room temperature down to 65 degrees.
And you'll have half as many pigs in the pen.
Correct. Yeah, I'll be down to 35 pigs in a pen, which to me, that'll make this pen look really empty. Because I think there are, if I'm in there where I'm thinking, because I've got inventory sheets. I've got a clipboard of how many animals are in every pen, what the pen number is, how much I've given them, how much feed that I've offered to them. We keep a lot of records on these animals.
Are there any other questions? We'll go back to each class and we'll take another quick question or two. Anything at Garraway? Last call?
I was going to ask if they had like.
Tom?
Do any people come to your farm for like a field trip?
Do any people come to your farm for a field trip? Is that the question? Thank you.
That's what you're doing today. Ohio Pork is, I think, probably the leader in the nation in doing these virtual field trips. Since we're the term is biosecure facility, I can't just let people come and go in my barn. That's what the shower is there to is to protect that. And frankly, a lot of people wouldn't want to come in if I told them they had to take a shower. But through this opportunity that we've got to bring you the classrooms through this virtual way of doing things, we don't have to take that risk as far as letting the public see in. But it's not like we're keeping any secrets. We're open up in this format so everybody can see what we're doing.
So Tom's pretty active on social media. He's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Why don't you share your handles with us as Mapleton is preparing their last question?
On Facebook, I'm just as my name, Tom Graham. On Twitter, I'm Oaklawn Farms. And I believe on Instagram, it's Oaklawn Farms also. I'm also on Snapchat as Farmer Tom 60. So if you're there, I'm there. Answer any questions that anybody wants to ask.
No, not for.
Tom, how often do you have to clean out your barns with manure, and how do you handle the manure?
Good question.
Well, the manure, as some of you might know, is underneath. These are concrete slatted floors, and the manure just falls through those slots. And you can see the pigs, they don't mind those slots in the floors, but there's an 8-foot storage pit underneath this barn, directly under it. and we pump it out once a year. I'm trying to work my way back so you can see some manure back there along the wall. With pigs as nature like to keep a clean area and a dirty area. But as I mentioned, we've got storage enough underneath this barn to store for almost a year of manure storage, and we pump it out with a pump and manure tanks and apply it to our fields as fertilizer. That's another benefit of this. There's a value on that manure that it's excellent fertilizer for crops, and we raise about 400 acres of corn and 200 acres of soybeans a year, so we buy very little commercial fertilizer. We use the manure from this barn as our fertilizer.
Great.
Thanks for asking that question.
One last call. Any burning questions before we wrap up? Oh, I see a hand in each room. Go ahead, Garaway.
Does it smell like really bad in the barn?
I don't notice anything in here.
It's really not, it's not bad. I will say I went in, we tried to do a Facebook Live in October. So I showered into Tom's barn. There's a lot of things that you do to manage odor. And as you can tell, Tom really takes this job very seriously and puts a lot of time and effort into it. So he just showed a thin layer of dust. You know, you do things to manage the dust because that's a carrier of odor. You keep the pit from crusting over. That you keep it liquid. That helps. And then outside the barn where the fans are, you keep the fan louvers, keep all of that clean. And those are all things that really cut down on odor. But keeping your pit liquid is a big deal, and there's just not the smell there that you might think when you hear the number of animals. It's not overwhelming or even bothersome at all.
Now we actually apply it's a microbe that we apply to our manure. We put it in the pit. I dump it in. It's in liquid form, and I dump it in where the waterers are, because any water that the pigs do waste, they don't waste a lot of water, but that helps disperse those microbes into that manure pit. And they're actually a live organism that work and help digest that manure. She mentioned the crust. The key is keeping that crust from forming on top of that manure and keeping it in a liquid state. And it's, you actually, if I pulled the covers off the outside of the barn and showed you this, there'd actually be bubbles in that manure where it's kind of digesting and working on that. But she mentioned the dust is probably worse in the wintertime in the barn when the ventilation isn't as active. I'm in the opposite end of the barn from where my fans are. They're actually clear down there, but they, you know, there are 6 fans running right now pulling air off of the pit, so pulling the heat down from the ceiling down through those slats. And I'll mention as more fans come on, those inlets in the ceiling will open up and let air in.
All right. Well, let's get out our hands. Let's give a round of applause again to Tom. Thank you so much for your time. We're grateful that you're so willing to share, and we thank you all, students, for the time that you have taken today to join. So it was great to see everybody, and we hope you all have a good weekend.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally got to get with you guys. Thanks for coming to my barn today. Not everybody gets to do that, so.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome.